Today, we're getting real about building a rock solid foundation for your retirement. Let's talk about how we can go beyond the bare minimums and build a 401k into something that really packs a punch.
It's another episode of Power Your Retirement. Walter Stroholt here alongside Steve Smith, certified financial planner. And it's going to be a great episode today as we start a new series on the show where we're going to be talking about the 7 principles of Powerhouse Financial Advisors. And these will be important to learn about and to know and understand. One, if you ever consider working with Steve and the team at Powerhouse Financial Advisors. But 2, I think the information we're going to cover over this 7-part series is just going to give you a really nice foundation and setup for living out a successful retirement and making a good financial plan. So looking forward to diving into each of these topics as we walk through this next series. And Steve, we're kicking things off with setting that strong foundation for retirement and really the basis of retirement planning here.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to going through how to really build that foundation, that core that helps folks really understand where they've been and where they are, and so we can plan to where they want to go.
Well, a lot of people begin their retirement plan by just kind of checking the box for the default options on their 401k, and they didn't put a whole lot of thought in it beyond that, really. So that's where you come in, wanting people to understand kind of what a clear, structured strategy looks like for retirement savings and starting to build more of a plan instead of just relying on the default options. So take us behind the scenes of what that really means to you. How can people truly prioritize a retirement plan, and why should we go beyond that default checking of the box?
Well, I'll just highlight some of the most common responses when people start to engage with our firm. When we're working with someone and their 401k and even outside investments that pour into that whole financial plan retirement strategy. Most people say some version of, I just want to check in with you to make sure I'm okay. That's a common thing that people say. And it's very general because that's really what they're doing up to this point is they're either picking a target date fund because they kind of get that mentality, but they really don't know, am I putting enough in to get where I need to go, or how much am I going to really need to live on in say 10, 20, 30 years. People constantly are questioning, am I doing the right thing? And that's really where the retirement plan lives, where we have a basis and enough information to try to make sense out of where we are and where we're going.
So people are, if they're looking for a second opinion, it sounds like, first of all, that am I doing okay kind of reason for raising their hand in the first place. Why do people just check the defaults in their 401k? Why don't they take that step further? And what are they missing out on by not investigating a little bit? Where are these missed opportunities popping up?
Well, there's a couple things that happen, and this is just human behavior. I wouldn't even call it good or bad. It's just human behavior. A lot of times people have some misunderstandings or misconceptions. I'll get a lot of times people will come to me after they have a significant amount of money and say, well, I didn't really have enough to work with a financial advisor. And this type of program working inside the 401k of a company doesn't have a minimum. Most people don't know that. It's a very unique thing. You're not going to hear that in the world too frequently, but this doesn't. We'll come in with somebody that's beyond the probationary period. Of course, they need to be set up and going with their 401k that needs to be working. But in the first year, we can totally start working with people and planning and making sure that those early contributions are going where they need to be and they're in line with their plan. So that's one of the common things that they thought they had to wait until they had a certain amount, and that's not true.
And so by not engaging further or going through this true retirement planning, what are some of the other things that they're going to then miss out on? Is it just the different options, or is it this the ability to just get advice that they otherwise wouldn't realize?
The sooner we get to know the understanding of what it's going to take to get them where they're going, the sooner they can react to how much they actually need to put in. That's another thing. Another misconception is, well, I put in enough to get the match. Okay. And that's a common thing that that people say. I put in enough to get the match, and so am I okay? Am I doing good?
Well, Steve, I think that's great. And I'm curious as we look a little bit deeper at retirement planning, we're not talking about just, okay, the investments in your 401k, and we're going to work with those. Retirement planning, I would imagine, is broader than that. So, what are the other elements of a solid retirement plan in your eyes?
Well, once we get over how much money we need to raise or find that hypothetical number, then we also need to ask some deeper questions about what do they want to get out of life? Maybe that's an earlier retirement. Are we working towards getting out at 60 as opposed to 65? Are we looking at if they're young enough, do they want one of the parents to stay home to raise kids? Do they want to save for the kids to go to college? Do they want to help the kids while they're home in their part-time jobs to get a custodial Roth going so they can help advantage them? And the list goes on. Those are just the hot buttons that we talk about that are pretty much apply to most everybody. That is what they miss out on, because too many people are like, oh, if I would have only known that, I could have totally helped my kids get a little better start. Oh, if I've only known that, we could have a second home that we've always dreamed of having in Arizona or wherever. So those are things that people lament on when they're too far down the road. And with planning early on in a career, we can really make those dreams happen.
So somebody's really just trying to pick the right stock or the right mutual fund. They're really just scratching the surface of this whole retirement planning conversation. It needs to have a true retirement planning is going to take on many different forms and approach this whole conversation from a lot of different angles, it sounds like.
It does. It's a very intricate conversation. We're going to share a lot of dreams, goals, plans, financial information to really set that foundation. And that's why we call it a rock solid foundation, because once all that information is in, then we start to make decisions. So this decision that we make, okay, we're going to do this, but this is the consequence. And it's amazing how it changes people's choices. And they're not my choices, they're always their choices. But when you have that information, oh, if we buy that new boat and that new truck and all these things, then we won't be able to do this, whatever that is. And that's really what I want them to start thinking about, because then it's like, well, maybe I'll get the new truck, but maybe, the boat we have is just fine. I don't know. I'm making that up. I'm not trying to push that type of mentality on people, but to have the conversation before you lock yourself into it is really important.
And the earlier you start, the better it sounds like. So if somebody is wanting to take a little bit more active approach to this whole retirement planning piece of knowledge, and they want to engage in this a little bit more and set up this solid foundation and not just check the default boxes, what's that look like? Is that a first appointment or a visit with you to discuss these goals? Like, where's the starting point for most of your clients?
It depends. It depends where you live and which company you work for. Some people will come in a live. We'll be in a conference room or in some kind of training room on site. So we'll be there, and that's a free invitation. And the great part is everybody walks away with a better understanding of their cash balance, pension, 401k, depending on the situation and the employee when they came into the company. Also, we talk about these things, working with an advisor and creating a financial plan, understanding and doing this on paper on purpose. Hypothetically, we do it all on computers these days, but on paper on purpose is what we say. And that's really how people come in. If you're not as fortunate to have me there live, then we can do online workshops. That's where it's just easy. People just pop in, they can watch, listen, and then of course they can engage whenever they want. And third is you can always go to the website, order the book a time. That can always happen that way too.
Excellent. Lots of ways that you can get connected, but I know powerupyour401k.com is the central hub for everything. It's where you can get the book, or where you can ask about meeting for an appointment or review or attend an upcoming workshop, or the specifics on the company that you work with. But if you work for a publicly traded utility, this is the place to be to learn more about finances, retirement planning, of course, and so many other topics as well that we'll be covering here on the show. Again, that's powerupyour401k.com. overlooking1k.com, your place to go for all the show resources today. Steve, anything else we need to know about retirement planning for these employees, and any other unique elements we should drop out there before we get ready to turn the page to our second principle?
I would just encourage everyone to engage in a second opinion. If you're doing this yourself and you do have the time and inclination, it won't cost you anything to engage with myself or someone from our company, just to make sure that you are on track. And if you see additional value, which we believe you will, maybe you'll be our next client.
Excellent. Well, again, powerupyour401k.com, the place to go for more info. On the next video, we'll cover the second principle of Powerhouse Financial Advisors. We'll be talking a lot about risk, and this is a really important topic for everybody to understand your own risk and also how risk is managed when you work with an advisor like Steve and his team. So come back and join us for that next episode. Steve, thank you so much for your help, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Walt. Thanks, everyone.
For Steve Smith, I'm Walter Storholt, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next time right back here on Power Your Retirement. This podcast is provided by Powerhouse Financial Advisors, an independent firm with advisory services offered through Parsonex Advisory Services, Inc., PAS, a federally registered investment advisor. The information provided is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered as personalized investment advice. PAS does not guarantee the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of this information for your specific circumstances. Investment decisions should be based on an individual's goals, time horizon, and risk tolerance. Past performance is not indicative of future results, and all investments carry a degree of risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any case studies, testimonials, or endorsements shared in this podcast are illustrative of individual experiences and may not be representative of the experience of all clients. They do not guarantee future performance or success. You should not infer any level of assurance regarding future financial outcomes. Listeners should consult with a qualified financial, tax, or legal professional before making any investment decisions. Parsonex Advisory Services, Inc. does not provide tax or legal advice. Be sure to consult with your tax and legal professionals regarding your specific circumstances. For a copy of our Form ADV Part 2A, which provides additional information about PAS, including our advisory fees and services, please visit powerhousefinancialadvisors.com.